This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. So the second objective is like to evaluate the working products. So basically, like we'll be like validating if the application is working as per the software requirements, and then the user stories and the design and the code. So basically, as I told yesterday, right, the requirements will be shared by the client or the business analyst, and then like we'll be validating the product with nothing but the application with respect to the requirements. Okay, so those things like we'll discuss, like how to like draft the test cases from the requirement, and how we'll be tracking the like traceability of the requirement, right? So those things we'll be discussing in the forthcoming sessions. So yeah, so the third main objective of the software testing is like to verify the requirement, as I told, right? So the requirement is like a bible for the software testers, and like our software should be validated with respect to the requirements and future, right? So we'll be like drafting the test scenarios and the test cases. So based on the requirement, like we'll be like deriving the test scenario on the test cases, and the test cases will be breakdown into the test steps. So that is how it works. So then the fourth main objective is like to validate the test object. So it's nothing but like so that application, that end to end, that functionality of the application is there, right? So we'll be like validating that completeness. Yeah. So then the fifth objective is like to build the confidence. So let's say, right, if we do like thorough testing, right, so that time like definitely like we'll have a more confidence on that product, so that we can easily deliver to client without any hesitation if we do the complete testing. So the 6 point is like to reduce the risk. So let's say if we are doing a complete testing, right, so we can reduce the risk of the production defect leakage or else the failure of the product. Then the next one is like to share the information to the stakeholders. So obviously, like that ultimate aim of the like testing is to deliver a bug free product to the client. So if we are doing a like thorough testing, so those time like we'll have a like very good confidence, and like we will have a very good quality of the product to share it to the stakeholders. So here, right, the stakeholders are nothing but the clients. So who's giving the project to us, right? So in technically we'll call them as a stakeholders, because like if we are into industry, right, in projects, like we'll be like referring them as a stakeholders. Okay. So then the next main objective is like to avoid the failures and the defects. Yeah. So obviously like so nothing but if the failures on the defects, right, so if it is detected at the very early stage of the project life cycle, right, so then so let's say if there is one defect, and if it is not identified at the initial phase of the project, and if it is identified at the final phase, right, so basically like with respect to the time and cost, right, so we usually say like if a defect is identified at the early stage of project, so it is like cost effective. So obviously like if it is identified at the early phase, right, so like we can like stop that failures at the early stage itself, so that, right, we can avoid the risk at the future. So let's say if it is not identified, right, and if it is continuing like till the end of the like release, right, there might be a chance like because of that failure, right, many failures will be occurring. And if it is fixed at last stage, right, so we may need to spend like more time and effort on the retesting parameters. So considering that, like defect finding at the early stage, right, it is good as like as soon as we do it as soon, right, so it is like a good advisable practice to follow. So these are like various objectives of the software testing. And like to consolidate it, right, so why we are doing the testing is to deliver the defect free product, and to ensure the proper coverage of the requirement, and to deliver a it will increase the confidence of the build. And finally, like we are sharing a good product to the stakeholders or nothing but client. Okay. So this is what the main objective of the software testing. So these are like basically the interview questions. So let's say if we are attending software testing interview with 0 to 3 years experience, right, so those time definitely we can expect these kind of questions. Like the interviewer will ask like what are the objectives of testing, like why you are doing software testing. So these kind of questions, right, these points will be really helpful to answer those kind of questions. So just make a note of it. We'll move on to the next slide. Okay. So again, like why testing is like necessary, as I discussed, right? So the properly tested software product ensures the dependability, security, and high performance. So if we test a if we test a product software product properly, right, so we can ensure like high dependability, so we can trust the project for the bug free thing. And then we can like security wise also, right, it just gives us more confidence. And then it gives us the high performance of the build, so which leads to like time saving, cost effectiveness, and the customer satisfaction. Okay, so at the end of the day, it's a business, right? So if you are delivering a good product, then it's again like it saves lots of time, as I told, right? So the as early the defect is identified, like we like the time saved is the defect identified, and the timing, right, it's like inversely proportional. As early it's identified, like time is saved. So that's what the concept is. And then like even the cost, right, so defect is directly proportional to the like time saving and the cost. So basically if defect, right, if there are like if defect is identified at the later stage, right, so identically the cost of the project is getting increased, because let's say if it is in a closure phase and if some defect is introduced, right, then again we may need to spend some time and efforts on that like entire SDLC team to focus on the defect. And because of that, right, there might be a chance like some other defect may arises. So this is what the concern is. And then the next thing is like ultimately the customer satisfaction. So the lesser the defects, the more the customer will get satisfied. So that is what. So these are like various like points we discussed already, but though I'll reiterate it, like the point of defects, to identify the defects, right, the testing is actually necessary, and to ensure the quality of product. So to increase the quality, right, it's needed. So delivery of high quality products, so more or less these are like same tips. It's required to stay in business and desired results versus actual results. So these are like various things we'll be considering while testing a application. Okay, so coming back to this slide, right? So this is like very famous interview question. So like if you are attending an interview, right, let's say up to 7 years experience, right? If you are appearing for manual testing interview, right? So then like panel will usually start with this question, like what is the difference between quality assurance and the quality control? Or else they may ask in different terms, like what is the difference between verification and the validation of the software? So let's look into it. So by seeing this oral pictorial representation, right, so let's say if some application, okay, before that, right, so I'm just repeat. So what is build? The build is nothing but the newly software, right, that is given to the testers for testing. So in technical terms, right, we used to call that application as the build. Okay, so let's say if a build is delivered right to the testing people, so initially what we'll do, we'll just plan the testing activities, and first at high level, right, we'll do the like quality control. So quality control is nothing but it's like kind of a static testing. So like where we like whatever the inspections or the reviews or the uh, auditing, right, whatever we are doing, right, so those things will be calling it as a quality control. So then the next thing is like quality assurance, right? So like once we have the proper quality control and testing in process, right, that time only like we can have the quality assurance. So quality assurance is nothing but, so we are just adhering to some standards and procedures just to ensure the quality of the build. So we'll see next slide so that you'll have a like detailed understanding of what I'm iterating now. So this table, right, it gives a simple like differences between the verification and validation. So as I told, right, the like quality control and verification and the static testing all refers to the same like terms. And then we can say validation or the quality assurance or the dynamic testing, right, so all are same. Okay, so interview can ask in any terms like what is difference between verification, validation, or what is difference between static and dynamic, right? So it varies, depends on the panel. But this is like universally asked question, especially when we appear for the manual testing interview. Okay, so the first is like verification, right? So in the verification, like we are like checking like are we implementing the system right? Whereas in validation, right, we are doing like are we implementing the right system? So these two statement makes the science, right? So in the second one, like we are just ensuring like whether whatever we did is right or wrong. But whereas in the first one, we are just checking like whether it if it is right or wrong, right? So it makes the sense. So like this validation, it gives us like more confident when compared to the verification. So because initially once the verification happens, right, so then only like we can go to the validation of the particular software. Okay. So then the next point is like evaluating the products of the development phase. Okay, so initially, as I told, right, during the initial phase of project, like we'll be like starting with the verification, and finally at closing stages of the product, right, so we'll be doing the validation, so evaluating the products at the closing of the development process. So though, okay, so the next is like the objective is to make sure the product is as per the requirement and the design specs. Yeah, because like our like we'll be like checking whether that product is working as per the requirement, and the a design spec is nothing but the like design documents only. So whereas here, right, whereas in validation, like we like apart from the requirement, right, we'll be like validate, like we'll be like ensuring like whether it satisfies the user requirements. Because the our ultimate goal of testing is to like what is it, deliver a good product to the customer, right? So that would be like the final like outcome of the validation. Okay, so usually the whatever activities we do, right, nothing but reviewing and the inspections and the meetings, right, so these will be part of the verification process. Whereas the normal testing, black box testing, white box and the gray box, right, so nothing but the formal, like we are creating a test scenario, test cases, and we are just executing it and tracking the testing evidences, right, so everything will be part of the validation. So in verification, that at high level we are just doing the testing, whereas in validation we are just deep dive into the testing, and we are documenting everything for the documentary evidences. So and then the verification, right, it verifies the outcomes or according to the inputs or not. So like these points we have already discussed. So whereas in validation the user accepts the software or not, so it's like with respect to the user perspective. So here, usually in verification, right, that plan, requirement specs, design specs, and code, right, everything will be like will be reviewed. Whereas here, right, we are just like actual product or the software under test, right, we are actually evaluating it. Okay. So again, it's since it is a auditing thing, right? The manually checking of the document and the files. So here, like checking the developed product using the documents and the files. Okay, like we are making some artifacts, and then with that, like we are ensuring the like correctness of the testing. Okay, so now I'll go back to the previous slide. So I'll just reiterate it. So like what is the like the as I told, right, so there are like differences between the quality control and the quality assurance. So quality control, right, we'll be calling it as a verification, and quality assurance is nothing but a validation. So in quality control, like we are checking like are we building the product right. So in quality assurance, like we are checking like whether the build product is right or not. Okay, so it makes a sense. So basically this quality control is a static testing, whereas this quality assurance, right, it's a dynamic testing. So we are just covering the nook and corner of the application. So basically like the activities like reviews, audits, meetings, and go through the requirements, right, so those will comes under the quality control. Whereas in the quality assurance, like that testing activities like white box, black box and the gray box, right, so nothing but that test case execution with the documentary evidences, so will be tracked under the quality assurance. Okay, so this is like a difference between the quality control and assurance. If anyone has any question, right, let's discuss that, because this is like a important thing for a manual tester. Just feel free to discuss. What is the meeting? Yeah, please post your comments. If you're fine, right, we'll go. So does everyone clear with these concepts? Yeah, guys, please feel free to discuss, because hello.
Yes, it's clear.
Yeah, you're clear, right? Because just tell me if I am fast, or if you couldn't able to track it, right, just please tell me, because end of the day, right, this course is for you people, and definitely like you should understand it. If you're not able to catch, or if you're not clear, right, or if you need like more explanation, please feel free to ask me. Okay, so on. Okay, so now maybe we'll do one thing. Ranjan, will you please tell like what's your understanding from the difference between verification and the validation? Yeah, hi Ranjan, are you there? Hello, Ranjan. Okay, hi Sandhya.
Yes,
Okay, yeah, okay, yeah, yes, Ranjan. Just tell me your understanding so that I can have like more confidence, like whether you people really got it or not. Yeah,
yes,
just feel
sir.
free to discuss. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I got.
Hmm.
Actually, I'm on another calling team, so that's why. uh,
Okay, no issues, no issues.
yeah.
Okay, so maybe I'll ask Syed. Syed, are you free? Okay, so Nupur, maybe you can say.
Yeah, so what I understand is like verification and validation is like it says like are we making the right software? And the second one is are we working on the right software? It's like one of them
Okay.
is static and other one is dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And the methods that are used in checking, the first one is like quality assurance, like it's more through inspections and
Mm-hmm.
checking meetings and all. And the other one is like black box testing, white box testing. So that's what I understand from this.
Yeah, yeah, great, great, sure, Nupur. So in basically right. So what difference between the verification and validation is that, as the name implies, right? In the verification, we are just orally verifying, right? Like whatever we are doing it at high level, right? So
Yeah.
that is nothing but the verification. So whatever the reviews or the audits we are doing. So validation is nothing but like we are just double checking or we are ensuring, right? Ensuring that we are actually delivering the good product. So that is what the validation is. Okay. So yeah, you are right. Yeah, thank you, Nupur. Yeah, Aruna, please feel free to ask. Yeah, hi Aruna. Hello. Yeah. So what's your question? Aruna, are you there? No, actually, I couldn't able to hear you. Will you please post here or else like speak, because right, it's everyone is waiting in the call. Okay. You just post your question. So meanwhile, I'll just continue with the slide because I don't want people to wait. Okay. So again, right? Yeah, guys. So today, whatever we'll be discussing, right? So all those are like with respect to the interview perspective. Okay. So this will be like morely, it will be like morely like theoretical kind of thing. So you may feel boring, but actually these are needed for interview purposes. So just please focus on that. Okay. So again, like. So these are like terms, right, where we used to like represent the defects. So we can like error, bug, fault, failure, defect, right? So we'll discuss that one by one. So basically, like defects is nothing but either right the defect or error or bug or fault or failure, right? So it's nothing but, so while doing a testing, right, if the expected behavior is not, if the actual behavior, right, if it is not matching the expected behavior, right, so then we used to call that as a error or fault or bug or defect or failure, whatever, if it whatever it is. Okay. So now we'll see that in detail. So what is defect? So the defect, right, so it, like if like as I told, right, if it is a differences between the expected and the actual results in the context of the testing. So let's say if I'm testing some software, and then like if there is a differences between the expected and the actual thing, right, so then I'll be calling it as a defect. Okay. So then it, like it found after the application goes into the production. Okay, so these things I'll explain you detailedly. So before that, right, we'll come here. Okay, so let's say, right, if people, right, who works on the Java coding part, right, they will be actually knowing it. So like if we have any errors, right, in the Java coding, we'll be telling it as a error. So let's say like arithmetic error, or else whatever errors we are facing at Java application, right, we'll be calling that as a errors. So error is nothing but a defect that is found by the developer itself. Okay, so ultimately the developer will develop the application, and that will be given to the tester, and finally once the tester tests it, we'll be handovering the application to the customer. Okay, so if a defect is found by the developer, it is called as a error or the mistake. Okay, if the defect is found by the tester, we'll be calling it as a defect or the bug or the fault. And then if the defect, if a tester has missed it, and if it is found by the customer or the client or the stakeholders, we'll be calling it as a failure. The failure is nothing but it fails to serves the expected behavior, right? So that we will be calling it as a failure. Okay, so same thing like bug and defect, right, both are actually kind of similar terms only. But if a tester has found it, let's say, right, in what is environment is nothing but, so let, so you guys, like, just a minute, I'll just illustrate with the simple example. So in yesterday's, right, I have told you about the Facebook homepage, right? So let's say this particular thing, right, so this Facebook application will be accessed by every one of us, right? So it's nothing but this is a production URL. Okay, so basically whenever the developer has started developing the application, right, so initially they'll be developing it under the like development environment. Okay, I'll just explain that. So we'll be calling it as a dev environment, and once stage, and then finally like prod environment. Okay, so basically let's say, right, if a developer, right, if he codes a application, if he done a coding, right, so initially that time that coding will be deployed under the development environment. So those time, right, the developers will do the basic unit testing, and once the unit testing is passing, right, so then the code will be moved from the development to the staging environment. The staging environment is the place where the testers will be testing the application. Okay, so this is like main environment for the testers, where we'll be like testing the functionality. Okay, so once the all the testing is done properly, once the validation is successful in the staging environment, right, so then we'll be pushing the code to the production environment. So let's say if the code is pushed to production, right, it means that the code will be available at the www dot, and every one of the and the person who have internet access, right, all over the world, they can able to access the URL. Okay, if let's say if it is at the staging or the dev environment, right, at those time it won't be accessible to the general public. Only the people who belongs to that project, right, only they have the access to they have the privilege to access the project related artifacts. So this is what environment means here. So does anyone have any question, right? Feel free to ask me if you have any doubts here, because these are like very basic things. All are clear? Does everyone is clear about the test environment? Guys, please give me confirmation. Hello. Clear and quality assurance, but can you please explain about the quality control? Okay, sure. Yeah. So does okay, yeah, Runa, definitely I'll just explain it. So before that, are you guys clear about the test environment? So to consolidate, right? So we have the test environment is nothing but that URL or the web application, whatever if it is, right, that is available to the user. So if it if it is testable by the developers, right, we will be calling it as a dev environment, and the dev environment won't be accessible by everyone. Only the developers can be will be accessing it. And let's say once the developers has done the unit testing, that the code will be moved to the test environment. So if it is in a test environment, then testers will be accessing it and testing it. Once all the scenarios are test passed successfully, right, then they'll be moving the code to the production. So that's what. Okay. So if a defect is found at a testing environment, right, we'll be calling it as a bug. And if the same defect is found at the production environment, right, we'll be calling it as a defect. So more or less, this error, bug, defect, failure, mistake, everything is same only, but depends on like place or like environment which it is identified, right? The name varies. So to consolidate it, so defect is nothing but the deviation between the expected and the actual behavior. If the mistake is found at the production environment, we'll be calling it as a defect. So error, if the defect is found at the development environment, we'll be calling it as a error. Okay. Bug, so bug is also a defect if it is found at the QA or the staging environment, right, we'll be calling it as a bug. So the failure, so let's say, right, if the like if let's say that now I'll just tell you about the difference between the failure and the fault. Okay. So failure, how we can say is like, let's say if something like is tested by the testers, right? So let's say if there is a simple scenario, I should be able to log in with the Facebook with the valid username and password. So with let's say I'm entering a valid username and password, and with username and password, like I couldn't able to log in. Okay. So this is actually a real-time failure because it failed to intend it is like fail to like serve the purpose, right? So these kind of like requirement miss, right, we'll be calling it as a failures. Okay. Sorry, where is the slide? Okay. So and then fault, right, it's actually like that cause it to behave incorrectly, right? So failure is like it's not working. Fault is nothing but it's working in a incorrect manner. Okay. So if I can, in the simple Facebook example, if I can able to log in with incorrect username and password, right, so that we can call it as a fault. Okay. So now I like everyone is like clearly understood about the difference between the defect, bug, failure and fault, right? So if you have any question, please ask me, because these are like basics and this will be asked at time of interview. Like interview may ask like what is the difference between the defect, bug and failure, right? So that time you should be able to answer it confidently, so then only like it will be like you'll be understanding the concepts more. Because in testings, especially manual testing, these kind of questions will be shoot out for the person who are at the early stage of career. So feel free to ask the questions. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Hi, Aruna. Like, does your audio issues fix now? Hello. Yeah. Aruna, I couldn't able to hear you. Okay. So coming back to your question, right? I'm clear with quality assurance, but could you please explain about the quality control? Okay, just a minute. Where is the slide? Okay. So okay. So see from this chart, right, what you can understand is like, so the quality assurance is like a destination. Okay. So the testing is the start, like the quality control is like a starting point, something like that. Okay. So once the starting point is completed 100%, then only like this quality assurance will be achieved. So so initially, like let's say if like to illustrate with some real-time example, right? So let's say if this URL is given to me, okay. So and I'm a tester and I should do the testing. So so initially what I'll be doing, so at high level, right, I'll just see that UI parameters. So I'll just check like whether the login button is present or not, whether the forget password button is present or not, whether the create new account is present or not, and then like I'll do like these kind of reviews or inspections I'll do, right? So these kind of high level testing will be calling it as a verification, nothing but the quality control. Whereas let's say if I'm like testing with the proper test data, right? So nothing but with valid username, if I can able to log in, right? If I'm checking these kind of things, right? So while checking, I'll so definitely like I'll be having a test cases, nothing but I'll show you like how the test cases will be so that you will have a clear understanding. So today at high level, I'll tell you about what test scenario is, what test case is, and then what test steps is. Okay. So these are like very basic for the manual testing. Please feel free to ask any questions. So let's say my requirement. Okay, this is how the requirement document look like. So requirement is like user should be able to access Facebook application and should be able to log in successfully, and for login he should enter he should page name, date of birth details. Okay, so let's say, right, or as simple, right, requirement will be like this. It will be in like English paragraph, and that will be shared by the client. So this is how the client will be sharing the requirement. So then with this requirement only, like we should draft the test scenarios and then test cases. So how like we'll be drafting is like, so my initial, like this is like home page valid, like Facebook home page validation. Okay, so this will be like, I'll first write some sample scenarios, then I'll just explain you. Okay, so this is how the requirement looks like, and then this is how the test scenario, test case, and the test steps would be. Okay, so let's say if we take a simple example of the Facebook application, right? So like the clients, right, they'll be sharing the requirement like this, like the user should be able to access the Facebook application and he should able to log in successfully, and for login and for sign up he should be entering this details. So this is how the client will be sharing the requirement. So based on this requirement, right, the developers and like they'll have an understanding, and then they'll come up with some plan, and then they'll start developing. So then with this requirement as a base document, like we'll be like creating the test scenario, test cases, and the test steps. So initially the test scenario, right, are very high level. Like the test scenario is like a high level, like nothing but a high level coverage, we are just doing it. Test case is nothing but like we are just breakdowning the scenarios into the test cases, and then finally the test steps are like the low level coverage. Okay, let's say in the Facebook homepage validation, right? So these are like various test cases, like scenarios like Facebook homepage validation, and test cases is like, so this entire page validation, right, it comes under the scenario. So let's say once I log in, right, after that I'll be taken to that the user profile page, right? So those will be like next page, and that will be my next scenario, like validate the profile page, or else validate the feeds, so something like that, right? So those will be like test scenarios, and the in-depth validation, right? So breaking down the scenarios is actually called as a test cases. So here in this simple example, the test cases is like validate the login for right credential, invalid credential, sign up, and the reason. So then again, like this particular test step, right? So I had breakdown into the test steps. So let's say this is the test case, break down into the first test case alone. I have break down into the test cases. So how we'll be breaking out, we'll be giving the detailed steps like how to validate it. So like log into the URL, like enter the username and enter the password and then click on the OK button, right? So this is how it works. Now I guess like you're clear with this. So at least you have a basic understand like what is the scenario cases and the design, right? Sorry, or if anyone has any question, right, we can discuss. Hello? Yeah, guys, please confirm like if you can understand, or else right if you need detailed explanation, please ask me. Okay. So going back to the slide, right? So Aruna, are you clear now about the verification and the validation? So it's nothing but in the Facebook example, right? If we are just verifying that high level, right, whether the navigations and the links are working properly, that will be called as a verification. Whereas if we are doing a complete testing, right, so that will be calling it as a validation. Okay. So nothing, are we building the system right? Like are we doing it right is nothing but verification. Are we implementing it right is the validation. Okay. Are you clear? Or still if you have any doubt, right, I'll try to illustrate with some other example. Please give me confirmation. Okay. Okay, sure, yeah, it's clear. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so now you can able to like differentiate between the like error, bug, defect and the fault, right? So to reiterate it, if a bug is found at the development environment, we'll be calling it as a error. If a bug is found at the testing environment, we'll be calling it as a bug. And then if it is found at the production environment, we'll be calling it as a defect. If a bug is found by the customer, right? So again, like in production, in same production environment, if it is found by tester, we'll be calling it as a defect. But same in production environment, if customer find it, we'll be calling it as a failure. So yeah, so this is how it is. So error, bug, defect, failure, right, all are same, but depends on like in which environment, if it is finded and who find it, right, the naming of that varies. Okay, but usually like we'll be addressing the this as a defect. Okay, so usually in testing, even if it is identified at the testing environment, right, if you are working for a project level and all, like even the error, bug, defect, failure, right, everything will be calling it as a defect only. Okay, so we want like when we work in industry, right, that is how it works. But these things are mainly needed for the interview perspective. So in interview perspective, right, if they ask like what is the difference between the error and the bug or defect and the bug, right, you should be able to answer it. So then only like it shows you're confident on the your understanding of the software testing process, right? So yeah, so now we'll move on to the next thing. Okay, so as I told, right, if a error is find at the early stage, right, then severity is like very less. So as the time increases, it leads to failure and the severity is also more. Okay, so that is what this graph shows. So error is nothing but the one which is find at the development environment. If it is find at development environment itself, right, the severity is low. Then if it found at testing environment, severity is little high. If it is found at a failure, right, at UAT environment or production, right, those times severity is like very high. Okay, so now, okay, so this is like so defect. So we have discussed about the defect, right? So how the defect arises, let's say if some defect comes, right, how to identify it. Okay, so in testing, right, so we have like 5 different methodologies to identify the root cause of the issue. Okay, so in today's session, right, we'll discuss these 5 topics and then we'll wind off this. So before that, like I'll just explain you these things. So let's say, right, so the whatever that tree we are seeing it, right, so this is nothing but a UI. Okay, so yesterday I have told you about the UI is nothing but the user interfaces. So I'll just copy the diagram here for the easy understanding. So let's say, right, like why I'm reiterating the Facebook application is like, so if I keep telling it, right, so you people will be like very much confident about that process, right? So that's why like I'm reiterating this application. So don't think that I'm boring. because if I'm using the same example again and again, right, it will be helpful for you to understand the process much better. Okay. Okay, so that whatever the like application we are seeing at web browser, right, so we will be calling it as a user interface layer. Okay, and then yesterday we discussed about the transformation layer, nothing but APIs, and the next is like a database layer. So in these example, right, the tree is called as a UI. Okay, and then the like whatever we have it under the soil, right, so those things, uh, like maybe we can say like the soil is like a database kind of thing, and then the roots, right, the roots is to like is the connection between the database and then the tree. So the roots are nothing but the APIs. Okay, so the API usually what is the function of the root, it takes the water and the minerals and then it will deliver to the tree, right? So unlike that, the tree is like a UI. So whatever the request and responses needed from the database, right, that will be taken via the APIs. Okay, so the let's say if some defect is if some defect arises, right, as a tester, like we should like able to differentiate it, like what would be the root cause of the issue. Let's say, right, if we are getting some issue at the UI, let's say when launching the application, right, if sometimes if you are getting like like internal server error, right, so that time we should be able to find like what is the root cause of the issue. Okay, so that is what like you'll get in the experiences. Okay, so how to find that is via that five what is that, five topics we'll discuss that. Okay, so like this one, right, root cause of the software defect. So what will be like, let's say if some defect arises, right, so what would be like possible causes. So the first one is like requirement. So let's say, right, the requirement, right, I'll 1 minute. Okay, in the notepad I have showed you. Let's say, right, so this is the requirement in that we have discussed like some time back. So first time, let's say if some defect arises, right, will be like let's say if we have a sign up page. So the customer told like in the sign up page we should have the age, name, sex, and the date of birth details. So let's say in the sign up page, right, that name like age parameter is missing. So that time, right, we'll be calling that as a defect, because like in the requirement it is mentioned that age should be there, but developers while implementing, right, they have missed the age, and as a tester we found it, then we'll raise a defect for that. So while writing a defect, right, how will be raising it, like, so in the requirement, so client has mentioned that we should have a age parameter in the sign up page, but actually it's not available at the UI. So that is what like a very high level how we'll raise a defect. Okay, so mainly if there is some defect, right, so we can raise it by comparing with the requirements. That is what they were about to say. So then next is like a code. If there is some issue with the code, right, so then obviously like that functionality will fail. So then the next is like a design. So if there is like any design mistake, right, so those time as well, nothing but the coding design mistakes only, those time as well, like we'll be getting that failure. So next is like security. So sometimes, right, we don't have a proper security like access of the application, and because of that, right, we may have the defects. So those things we'll see detailedly later. And then the next is like bad fixes. So these are like very basic common points like why we'll get a defect. Okay, so these are like five different topics, like five different like parameters, right, to identify the root cause, to perform the root cause analysis. So as we told, like what is the root cause analysis is nothing but to identify the root causes of the issue. So how to find out that? By using these techniques. So these techniques are like Pareto chart, like 5 whys, fishbone scatter diagram, and the failure mode analysis. Okay, so the parento chart, right? So this is like a most powerful tool that helps the viewers to understand like which factors most influence outcomes. Okay, so nothing but, so let's say like I'm testing. Let's assume like we are testing one application, and in that application, right, let's say, right, if a tester, right, if we let's say for while testing, right, if we found a like 50 or 100 bugs, right, it doesn't mean like developers has developed it wrong. So in some cases it may project it, let's say, right, if they have given this particular URL to us. Okay, and as a tester, like we can raise n number of defects. Okay, maybe we can even raise like this Facebook color is blue and this is not good to appear, like those kind of things are like cosmetic issue. So we have rights to like raise these kind of issues as well. Okay, but definitely that will be rejected by the developers. That is like a next thing we'll discuss later. But as a tester, we have a full privilege and the rights to question like whatever we are seeing and whatever we feel like we are wrong. So in the parent to analysis, right? So let's say to identify the actual root cause of the issue, right? We'll be doing this thing. So here, right, what we'll be doing is like, so first, what are the steps like how to perform is like identify and then list the problems. Okay. First to identify like what and all problems are there. So let's say in this example, right? So these are like various defects. So like sometimes, right, we get a broken links at a UI. So those are like one kind of issue, and sometimes we get a spelling errors. So here, right, let's say if the Facebook is mistyped as FAKEBOO book, right, something like that, some cosmetic spelling error. So that we have as a parameter missing the title, missing the description, broken image, script error, incorrect use of headings, missing the tabs, browser compatibility, security warning, right? So these are like various topics. So where we have categorized the issues. So let's say, right, so let's say if we have like 50 plus defects, right? So then we need to like identify like whether developers has run is wrong or why we have this much number of defects. To identify that, right, if we do this parento chart analysis, then it will give us a most accurate understanding of the root cause of that particular issue. Okay. So basically, like as mentioned here, right, to identify and list the problems. So here in the x-axis, the problems are listed. Then to identify the root cause of the each problem. So like in the count of errors, right? So like in x-axis, whatever parameters we have for those, like we are working on the analysis, like deep analysis. So let's say broken links means how many like test cases failed because of this broken link. So those will be seeing here. So let's say 500 test cases failed and we are marking it here. So something like that, like we will be after listing the problem, right, identify the root cause of the each problem. And then the next is like a score problem, and then group problems together. So here, right, we are just scoring the problem in the y-axis, and then similar problems we are just grouping it. Okay. So then finally add up the scores of each group and then take action. So now, right, by seeing this, I can able to say like that mainly like the defects are most of the defects are due to the broken links, and that's need to be addressed, right? So these kind of inferences we can easily like come up with this like parento diagram. So this is like one technique. So we still have like other four techniques, but it's like our choice, like which one we need to choose to arrive the proper root cause, right? So this again it varies. So if anyone has any doubt on parento analysis, right, please feel free to ask me. Yeah. Hello. Yeah. Yes, guys. Because device is not connected with my old version. So I don't have link. Maybe like yeah. So hi Mushraf, Nupur, Sandhya, Ranjan, Aruna. Like if you have any questions, right, please feel free to ask me. Or is the section is boring or why you guys are silent? Please tell some points. Okay, sure. Yeah, thank you, Nupur and Aruna, for confirmation. Maybe because, right, he has some links to join. Maybe if you have anything handy, right, please post it here from the WhatsApp group, right? So it will be easy for them. So shall we continue or we'll see tomorrow? Because like, do you guys feel like it's fully occupied or shall I complete all these five topics? Please post your feedback so that we can plan it accordingly. Okay, sure. Yes, Nupur. So, okay, so before signing off for the day, right, I'll just summarize like whatever we have discussed today. So today we have discussed about the objective of the software testing. Okay. So what is the main objective of the testing is like to prevent the defects and to satisfy the customer and to deliver the defect free product, and then it should be like cost effective. let's say if a defect is identified at the early stage, then we can save the cost to the project. If it is identified at the later stage, then the cost and the time, right, it's inversely proportional to the defect. So these are like very points that we need to be remember with respect to the objective of the testing. Okay, so the why is testing necessary to what is it, to deliver the what is it, to save the time and to like save the cost and to satisfy the customer. So that is why testing is necessary. So then the important interview question, what is the difference between the quality control and the quality assurance? So the quality control is nothing but verification and quality assurance is the validation. So what is the difference between the verification and validation is like in verification, like we are just verifying whether the implement, like are we implementing the system right? Whereas in the validation, like are we implementing the right system? Whatever we done right, if it is right or not right, we are like double checking before delivering the product. So that is what the validation is. So basically in verification, because in interview if they ask right, you can't tell all these points. So this first point definitely you should tell. Like verification is to verify like whether we are implementing the system right, whereas validation is are we implementing the system right. And then in verification, the review meeting and the inspection will be part of the verification, whereas the white box and black box testing will be part of the validation. These 2 points should be enough to answer. Okay, so then, like I have told you the difference between the error, bug, fault, failure, and the defect. If the bug is like identified at the early development phase, we'll be calling it as a error, and if it is identified at the staging or the QA environment, we'll be calling it as a bug. If a tester identified it at the production environment, we'll be calling it as a defect. If a client identified at the production environment, we'll be calling it as a failure. The fault is nothing but deviation from the actual behavior. Okay, so this is what the difference is. So now I guess you guys will be familiarized with these charts. So as I keep telling, like as early the defect is identified, that severity is low as possible. So our ultimate aim, so see, like as a tester, right, our ultimate aim is to like find the bugs or error or defect. Okay, but it should be identified at the early phase of project. So then only like it is like cost effective. Okay, because end of the day we all are working for money, right, and we work for some client, we work for some service based company or product based company, right, and they like and they definitely they'll have some budget estimation, right. So if we find a bug at early stage, right, so it will be like a cost saving for them. Definitely our testing, right, so why they have a tester separately, like developers has developed it, right, they know the functionality in and out. So why they are recruiting the testers to find the error, right. So that is what our job is. So we should find it as early as possible. Okay, so then again we have discussed about the environments. So basically we have a development environment, testing environment, and the production environment, and we have discussed those things. So we have discussed about the parento analysis. So the parento analysis is like, let's say if some issue arises, so we should focus on the small checkpoints, and we have categorized the checkpoints, and then with we need to like collect the data for the small points. Okay, so after collecting the data, like we'll be like analyzing like where actually that what is the root cause of the problem arises, right. So in the simple example, the most of the failures are due to the broken links, and that is identified using the parento diagram. So now, right, so if it is a broken link, then definitely the front end developers are like responsible for it. So now we can say them like, so we have most of failures from the broken link, so you need to take care of it. So these things will explain detailedly later, but high level, this is what we have discussed for today's session. So other things, right, we can discuss tomorrow. So with this, if anyone have any questions, right, feel free to ask me. Yeah, now it's your turn. Like, yeah, Sayed, you can share your feedback. If you have any questions, right, we can go ahead, or else we can close it. Yeah, I'll go with one by one. Let's start with Sayed. Hi, Sayed. Okay. Yeah, Sayed is busy, I guess, as he told. Yeah, hi, Nupur.
Yeah, up till now it's okay. I mean, I will go through it, and if I found something, I will let you know tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So maybe, right, at the end of each day, right, I'll share you the slides so that, like morning, right, just spend some time on the hovering on the slides, okay? Because you keep seeing that, then only like you will be familiarizing with the concepts. Because testing, right, initial few days it will be like theoretical session, so it will be like on the fly, right? It seems like you'll understand everything, but at holistic picture, right, you may miss. So daily, right, just try to put some effort and like get it done. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
because
what.
just like if we understand, without being into an IT background, if I say it's just like testing is we are just taking checking the product is right or no. We are delivering to
Mhm.
the right product to the customers. But then going is the main like the tools that we use and the vocabulary that we use for this IT. I think it's gonna take time for me to understand, and it will be like going through this every day.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like slowly, right? You'll be understanding everything. But yeah, just because everyone, like every one of you, right? So everyone wants to step into IT, right? That's why you are choosing the manual testing. So like what, like for me also, like this is like first, like you are my first batch. So definitely, like I even like I won't be like 100% like delivering you like whatever I was about to say, right? So if you raise a question, right, then only like I can able to correct myself, and then I can give a like good knowledge transfer to you. So that's why. So I appreciate like asking questions. Yeah, that's what. Because end of the day, it shouldn't be like I'm shouting something and you are not understanding it, right? So I don't want that to happen. So if anyone has any question, right, please feel free to ask me. Okay. Yeah.
Sure.
Hi Sandhya. Yeah. Thank you, Nupur. Yeah. Hi Sandhya.
Hi, it's clear.
Okay. So yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Hi
And
Ranjan.
give some
Oh.
more examples. Okay.
Okay. Sure. Sure. So let's say, right, in which and all topics you need more examples, right? If you tell, maybe I can focus more on that. Maybe in today's session, right?
Yes, yes. Today's section only.
No, which topic especially like you need more examples? Like because for each and every topic, right, giving more example like it's practically not possible, right? So like where and all like you have like misunderstanding, right? If you raise that as a concern, so I'll focus more on that. So right, like you'll be
Okay.
getting like yeah, that's what. So in today's topic, right, in today's session, like where you actually need more example, right? If you tell that maybe tomorrow, like while starting, right, I'll be like covering that. Okay. Sure, sure. Yeah, maybe you can post in message as well. I'll follow it. Yeah, hi Ranjan.
Yeah, hi
Let's
Dinesh.
wind up.
Well, one more time, I'll go to the recording. Any doubt, I'll post in the group.
Yeah, yeah, sure, Ranjan. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi Aruna. Are you clear? I guess Aruna has some mic issues. Yeah, hi Vikas.
Hello.
Yeah, hi Vikas. Have you joined? I see like you up and down like you are joining. Like, can you able to like catch it? Like what I said, or you have missed it? Because maybe your voice is not audible. Hi Salma. Okay. So yeah, hi guys. Because right, even like I'm also like currently like working for a different project. So currently, right, even like I'm just spending some time for you people, right? So I just want to like utilize it in a proper way. Because if you have any doubts, right, please raise it then and there so we can get it addressed. Okay. So guys, thank you. We'll meet up tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.